Hi guys, welcome to Facebook Live. I'm your host Rose and
I'm your host Lauren.
And today we are going to go over some really fun tips for personal growth, which is a really good time of year now that we're sort of out of that whole very motivating New Year's season and we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the year. It's a good time to start focusing on personal growth, what you really want to get out of this year, and where you want to go. But Lauren, before we jump in, do you have anything you'd like to say to our viewers today?
Yes, I do. Thanks, Rose. So please do share with us any feedback, questions, thoughts, comments in the comments section. We love to engage with you guys. And our backstage buddy Des is here to talk to you guys in the comments section. And of course, we're looking at them too. Send us a message too. You can send us a private message with any questions, or you can call us. The number for student services is 1-888-427-1000. If you're not a student yet, you can call our admissions department at 1-888-427-6500. And we'll be happy to chat with you guys any of those ways. But please do not put any personal information in the comments because those are public. So no student numbers, personal phone numbers, anything like that, because other people will see that stuff. So keep that in the direct messages, but otherwise, definitely talk to us in the comments, tag your friends if they might be interested. And we can't wait to chat with you guys about personal growth today.
Yeah, so I think that personal growth is one of those things that we can easily put on the back burner. We could just say to ourselves, I have to take care of everyone else but me, and I can get back to, finding those little pieces and things that make you who you are and just kind of putting them on the back burner, especially things like your goals and things that you want to do in life. And I think that it's important for everybody out there watching, to jump into the comments, tell us what your plans are this year, tell us some of your goals. We want to know, we want to get to know you a little bit better, and we should actually, Lauren, what are some of your goals now that we're in this whole new part of the year, which I think is just I feel like this time of the year is everything goes from way up here, and then all of a sudden it's we're down here waiting for the spring, we're waiting for nice weather. Everything just kind of feels like the waiting game. So now that you've had this little bit of time to reflect at home, of course, working from home, have your goals changed at all since the beginning of the year?
I think I will say now that it's the winter, so it's pretty cold outside with the pandemic and everything going on, being at home, this is a really good time for us all to be focusing on ourselves because there's not much else we can do. And
right.
For, when the weather gets nicer, when there's more stuff going on, it'll be a great time to kind of reemerge as a fresh person with goals accomplished, things checked off the list, and feeling really good. So with that in mind, my goals are really to get healthier because I just feel like I've been really snacky and lazy over the winter months.
Yeah.
Drink more water, whiter teeth, budgeting is a big one. Just all things to set and learning, getting better at what I do, things like that, so I can reemerge in the spring as a better version of myself.
That's a really good point, is that right now it does feel like we have this it's a lull, but it does feel like if you use this time wisely, by the time you get to the spring, you can have a whole new set of goals that are, checked off, and you're kind of becoming a butterfly. You're just reemerging as something a little bit better.
What about you, Rose? What's your butterfly goal?
Well, same big thing was with health. And I wonder if any of you guys are feeling the same way out there, being that this is a different year I think the winter's always a little challenging unless you're super lucky and you're living in San Diego or you're in Miami right now. But, I think for the most part, winter is a time of year where there's just less sun. It's colder. It's usually not, I do like the snow and winter sports and stuff like that, but there's something about it that's just a little bit less motivating. And I think in a pandemic, it is just one more step less motivating. Like everything just feels like, well, it's on hold, it's on hold, it's on hold. So my goals are similar to yours. I want to figure out the snacky situation because that can't be the full scope of my entertainment at home. And also, I am in school right now. I am definitely trying to work on myself. And one thing I have noticed, I don't know how you guys are feeling out there, it is so hard to focus on reading and school right now. It is just part of the winter lull. It is just that, like, something about the general energy is like, I'm just going to put off reading this textbook just like another day, or I'm just going to like put off logging in to check my stuff. And it just makes it a little tougher. So I'm trying to get into a very more strict routine where I'm forcing myself a little bit so that when the springtime hits, I have accomplished some stuff, I'm feeling really good, and there's that whole mood shift, but I'm going to be ready for it. I'm going to feel good when I get there. So that's a little piece of where that's my new reassessment of my goals since the new year.
I think just based on even what we're talking about now and what we've been hearing a lot from you guys, today's agenda is going to be a really good one. And it'll be a nice time, I think, for all of us today to think about how we can accomplish some of these things, how we can feel better, get into those growth mindsets. We're going to talk about scheduling and budgeting a little bit too. So I think it's important for us all to take a little break from our hectic lives today and focus on some of this stuff. And then, as we talk about all of these things today, think about how they apply to you and think about how they can help you. So to jump into it, Rose, help us define personal growth a little bit, since that's really the big topic today.
So personal growth is about basically figuring out how you want to improve. It's developing yourself and changing for the better. It can be big things, it can be small things, but in general, it's just something that centers around, your mental state, how you feel about yourself. Personal growth is a lot of it. It can be confidence. It can be, skills, gaining new skills, gaining hard skills, like the things like your studies or soft skills, like becoming a better communicator, anything like that. So anything that really generally is just helping you improve. And I would say the best place to start there is things that if you improve those areas, you're going to feel better about yourself, because then you'll feel exponentially like a different person. It will change every aspect of your life if you feel more confident. So personal growth is really focusing on the areas that you want to change for the better, understanding that you can change them for the better, that it's in your power. Nothing's holding you back. And the only thing that's holding you back is maybe a little bit of those voices in your head that are telling you that you can't do it, but you absolutely can. So, and speaking of that, it's that voice in your head sometimes can slow you down, and it can tell you terrible things and make you feel like a failure before you even start. And that's always a tricky thing for all of us to have to overcome. And that's why it's important to try to get into a mood for success, which is one of the things that we're going to be going over today. Laura, do you have any tips on how someone would get into, because this is a tricky thing. You have to literally change your mood, what's a good way to change your mood to be in a more of a successful, or put your focus on success?
Yeah, I agree, Rose. I think this is not easy to do by any means, especially, going through the pandemic, going through the winter, just everything we have going on in general. Putting yourself in a positive, can-do mind frame is not easy. So my first tip is you have to be gentle with yourself. Know that it's going to take some time to work on changing your mindset and really getting yourself in the mood to make progress. But I think the big thing is you have to have a step one. So your step one is defining your goal, and think about what Rose just said about personal growth. It is individual. So you have to think about what that personal growth is for you, and then let that be the goal, or goals. Try not to get too ambitious, because that's when it gets overwhelming. But,
True.
Have 1 to maybe 3 goals for personal growth in mind.
Mm-hmm.
and then start thinking about ways that you can work towards reaching those. Know that success is not uniform. So success means something different to everyone. Your goals for personal growth are going to be different than everyone else's. Even if they're similar to maybe things that we just said, the way that that'll apply to you is so individual to you. And what a good step looks like to you is going to be different than how it would look to me or to Rose or anyone else. So don't try to compare yourself. Just be proud of what you think you can accomplish and what you are accomplishing. I think another thing that might hold some of us back is fear of failure. I think if we're all afraid of failure, but that shouldn't stop anybody from trying to better ourselves and to do something that's good for us. If you don't try, you're definitely going to fail. So you have to at least put yourself out there.
Failure is one of those things. There's literally nobody, well, nearly nobody on earth that isn't afraid of failure. There are, I guess, some people that aren't afraid of failure, but they're few and far between. I think most of us are just, we automatically think, ooh, I don't know if I can do this. What if I fail? That would be so humiliating. But there is that old adage, like if you fall off the horse, get back on the horse. And it's possible. You can technically do poorly at something and still keep going and still be successful. So, keeping that in mind, even if you do fail along the way, you can still gain great success, and it would be a great part for anybody's personal growth. And also, I think there's a lot to learn from when you do fail and then you overcome it. I find that the biggest confidence boosters I've ever had in my life have been times when I failed. And instead of just saying, I'm not even going to try this anymore, this has been a humiliating experience, I've forced myself to keep going. And then knowing that I have that inner strength to overcome my own fears makes me feel like a lot more invincible about what I can do next. And usually I'll fail at something, and maybe the next time I do a little bit better, and then I do a little bit better, and then eventually, it might actually be something I'm good at, and nothing feels better than that.
I think you're exactly right, Rose. And then another point to make on that too is sometimes you have to fail if something is hard, and a lot of this stuff is, especially when it has to do with personal growth. If it were easy, you probably would have already done it. So it's not easy.
Right, just like it's easy to snack.
Yeah, it's so easy to snack.
It's so much harder not to snack.
Yes, but and that's why every little step is important. Like for Rose and I who are snacky, choosing to have grapes instead of chips, those are steps that are good. But, I think in the grand scheme of things, no matter what your goal is, sometimes too, when you fail, something that doesn't work, and eliminating things that don't work can get you closer to what does. So sometimes failure can be success because it's actually moving you closer to something that will help you reach your goal.
And it's also, imagine if you never fail. Who is good at everything that they never fail? Especially the learning process is almost kind of built in for some failures along the way. If you're trying to grow, I don't know one person on earth who's ever just been like, oh, I'm going to try this new thing. I'm going to nail it on the first time. I'm going to totally rock it. That just doesn't happen. So it's good to just remember that everybody fails. We all fail. We have to keep going and not to fear it. There's no reason to fear it. It's totally something that any of us can overcome.
And I think it's important to focus on the reward rather than the risk. Of course, you have to know the risks of anything you're getting into, be realistic about what you're setting out to do. But if you know that the reward of what you're setting out to achieve is something that you have to achieve or something that would make your life so much better, try and set that as what you focus on instead of letting all of the negatives, I can't do it, or this won't work for this reason, get in your way, and think about what you can do to make it work, what you can do to do better. And know that every single time you choose to think about how you can improve something or how to get closer to your goal, you are getting closer to your goal, and that's progress. But with that, it takes some planning and some scheduling, which is our next topic. So Rose, do you want to tell us a little bit about how scheduling can apply to personal growth?
Well, sure. So we only have 24 hours in a day. I don't know how many minutes that is, but 60 times 24. So we all have this burden of how do we get more stuff done in this small amount of time when we have work and we have school, which is personal growth, and when work is personal growth, if we're all doing it right. Family, friends, pets, some of us have, whatever it may be, just general chores. Like, how do you fit in time for yourself where you can improve in any of the areas where you feel like it's going to make a difference in your life? None of us can do that without having some kind of a plan. There needs to be some time carved out in your day for it, and you need to set it aside. It needs to be there for you because it's just too easy to just say like, oh, I can't do that today. So this is the part where you have to set yourself up a little bit for that success through the scheduling. So my first mega tip is, if you have one of these bad boys, if you have a cell phone, which I feel like just about everybody in the world is attached to their cell phone all the time, use it. Immediately think of the things that you want to get done this week. And I think for most of us now, like, let's utilize technology. Talk to your phone and say, set a reminder for these days to do these things, and set alarms and set alerts. It takes very little effort. It could take, something pops up in your mind, you immediately tell your phone, hey, can you schedule a half hour of study time on Tuesday, because I want to take an exam on Wednesday. And then you put that alert in for Wednesday, like exam day, and you stick to those things. And if you don't stick to those things, it's okay, you can reset, but try to have some things carved out, try to have some things planned. And when you see those reminders, you're going to know if you're kind of letting yourself down by not doing them. So make sure that you are keeping yourself accountable and staying on top of those things. And I'm as somebody who is studying around the clock right now, I totally suggest you use your phone and any tech that you have to the best of your ability. Look up some apps, figure out what you can do to make your phone work for you, almost to nag you a little bit. So you definitely also, if there's other things that you want to do that maybe isn't studying, maybe it is something like you want to get more steps in a day, set alarms for those things, set aside some time, make your goals really realistic. If you only have 10 minutes in a day to take a walk, make sure you squeeze in those 10 minutes and plan out those 10 minutes so that you can have, if you have kids at home, you can arrange for somebody to be watching the kids for just 10 minutes or whatever it is, or you can take a walk with your kids for 10 minutes, and it fits both of your schedules. Just make sure that you are keeping in mind that a day goes by very, very quickly, and no one knows where the time goes. None of us know where it goes. And if we don't have some time management skills, we are going to drop the ball because things just move quickly. So make sure you're staying on top of what you realistically want to get done, and set those reminders for yourself. Set times of the day where you want to reach some goals, even if it's like, I'm going to drink a cup of water at 10 a.m. and at noon and at 2 p.m. Try to figure out what times match the goals that you want to meet. Also, yeah.
Oh, Rose, I was just going to say, to add to that, I think scheduling and planning and being organized up front is so important, because when you're kind of just piecing together your day as you go, then you're going to waste so much time in figuring out like, oh, I can study now, but where did I put my computer or my notebook? Or, oh, I can go for a walk now, but where are my shoes? And do I really have time for this? Can I fit it in before I have to drive to the appointment, or whatever it is?
Right.
And that's going to take away from time that you can be doing the thing. And then B, that stress of feeling overwhelmed is going to be such a distraction that you'll carry throughout your day. And it's just really going to mess you up. Like, I feel all of us, I'm sure, have experienced feeling overwhelmed because it feels like there's a lot going on and it doesn't piece together. But if you take the time to get organized in advance, it can help you feel like you have your day under control, you have your plans under your control, and it's all going to work out and be okay.
I don't know about any of you guys out there, but I was a very disorganized kid. It was always my big stumbling block was just staying organized. It was so hard for me to do all through school as a kid, all through high school. It was always tricky to stay organized. And I now am quite organized, and it took a lot of effort. It took some personal growth, but if you're one of those people out there that's like, I cannot get organized, I am proof that you can get organized. I'm not Lauren Stash organized. That's a whole other level, Lauren. You are the most organized. Lauren is like, you should see her closet game. It's incredible. But for some of us who it is a challenge, that doesn't mean that you're not going to become an organized person and have, conquer these time management obstacles and things like that. You can still do these things. It just takes that little extra effort. Big suggestion, lists. Write down some lists, keep them handy, and stay on top of that stuff. And sometimes you need a list for like, here's a list of the things that go in this closet or in this drawer or whatever, just to kind of keep things a little bit in structure. Because I've always been somebody who's been a little loosey-goosey with the structure. I'm kind of a free spirit. But if you kind of relate to that, just, you can do it. Just keep chipping away at different organizational skills, and you will get there. I promise. I can promise you that. Don't let that feel like it has to hold you back, because it used to make me feel that way.
And keep lists as you go, too. I think that's a good suggestion. Like, my grocery list I'll make throughout the week of like, when I notice something is out, I'll put it on the list. Or like, if you're studying and you know that you'll need to recall a certain fact, or you want to move on to a certain lesson in a certain time frame, like, write it down when you think about it, so that you're not scrambling later being like, what was that thing I need to do? And then it ends up all over the place. So try and stay with things, as they pop up, and that will really help.
Definitely. And again, use technology to your advantage. It's there. It's available for you. We didn't used to have these things 10 years ago. It was a lot, well, we did, but not to this level. And it does make life just so much easier. So use any tools that are available to you to make your life easier, and get into the habit of doing those things. And it'll really save you some time. But of course, this has all been very, like, how do we fit so much stuff in the day? How do we get, eating right, jogging, in school, and, coming up with setting aside time to paint and do our hobbies. But also there needs to be time, just downtime, where you just relax, because you don't want to burn yourself out. And that is a very real thing. And this time of year, I think, is easy for us to get burnt out, because everything just feels a little bit heavier. Especially during a pandemic. It's just been rough. So if you put too much pressure on yourself, it's a little bit of self-sabotage. You don't want to go down that. It's a dark path. So make sure you leave some time that's just for you to relax and have a minute to yourself, and to, there's something to be said about, we're always looking at our phones, even though I've been saying like crazy, like, use this, it's always in your hand, and it is good to use. But there's something to be said about just unplugging and letting your mind wander a little bit. And it's amazing how many problems you can solve just giving your mind a second to just be still and thoughtful without all of these different distractions in the way. So make sure you're setting aside some time to relax in your day, and prioritize it. It's important. It's important stuff. On that note, set a bedtime. Because the next day is going to be here before you know it. And this is a big thing. Lauren, you are a morning person, aren't you?
I am.
Don't get that. I don't understand that at all. I am a night owl, for sure. I'm one of those people that if I don't set a bedtime, there's no bedtime. I don't know when I'm going to go to sleep. I could be up doing things all night. And then what happens is the next day is a drag. This happens all the time. And as soon as you start having a couple of those days in a row, that's a drag. You're going to get less stuff done. You are going to say to yourself, I need to catch up on sleep. I'll do that tomorrow, or whatever it is. Set yourself a bedtime and try to stick to it as much as you can. And again, try to power down at night so that you're actually unplugged, and you're actually, you're not dozing off because you're exhausted, because you just want to, read that last blog. And then you finally nod off. Try to take some time before bed just to completely unplug and decompress.
I think with that too, all this depends on your work schedule, because some of you guys might work at night, in the morning, whatever it may be. But that aside, set an alarm in the morning too, because if you let yourself sleep the day away, you're not going to feel great. if you don't have other stuff going on. So trying to keep a consistent sleep schedule where you're getting enough sleep, but not to the point that you're groggy from too much sleep, is really important. And I think it's nice to, in the morning and at night, leave yourself a little bit of extra time just to kind of, in the morning, scroll through your Facebook or whatever, get your mindset focused on the day ahead. At night, you can reflect on the day and nothing feels rushed or overwhelming. And I think that can just help to make things feel more balanced.
Yeah, it does help, that late night anxiety. I think that a lot of us have when we put our head on the pillow and we're like, what didn't I get done? Did I remember to, did I leave the stove on in second grade? Not that I should have been touching the stove in second grade, but you know how at night you start to get all those wandering thoughts. The more that you allow yourself to just unplug and go to sleep and have a time to wake up in the morning and a time to go to bed at night, a lot of that just kind of alleviates, because within your day has more structure, you're getting more done, you're feeling a little bit better, you're feeling more in control, because everyone hates that out of control feeling. And, that really goes to the next thought, which is don't be afraid to ask for help. If you need help, don't think that you're in this alone. We definitely can't do it all on our own. And I know a lot of us try. We don't want to burden other people with our feelings or with our needs or whatever it may be. But most of us, I would say all of us, have somebody who genuinely loves us very, very much, that wants to be there to help. They want to help. And also, if you need help at Penn Foster at any time, reach out to us. We are a Penn Foster family. We are buds. So if you have anything that, you need help with school or motivation, we're here to make you feel less overwhelmed. So don't forget that asking for help is a totally necessary part of life. No one should really go through life feeling like they shouldn't be able to ask for help, because that's what humans do. We ask each other for help. We have these communities. So make sure that you are asking for it when you need it and you're not overdoing it, because that is always a bad start when you want personal growth. So the next thing, Lauren, if you could go over a little bit, so we're getting into a little bit more of maybe the less glamorous pieces of personal growth, but that's super helpful and can really keep us on target towards our goals. So I think everybody in the world has to pay bills. Everybody in the world has to figure out how to keep a roof over their head and things like that. I mean, it's just the reality of our lives. So budgeting is a big piece of that. How to make our money work best for us, basically. That's what budgeting is. It's kind of like time management, but for money. So it's like, we have this many hours and we have this much money, and how do we utilize those things to the best of our ability? Lauren is awesome at budgeting. Lauren has great organizational closet game, and she also has great budgeting game.
Roses too.
I've gotten better. It was another thing I wasn't great at. It's just more of that, you can work on things and you can improve, but Lauren is like amazing at it. So Lauren, do you want to give us some of your best budgeting tips?
Sure thing. And I think budgeting is really important to have in the conversation of personal growth, because I think for budgeting and with scheduling too, those can be huge stressors when they're not going well. And if we're spending a lot of our emotional energy on feeling overwhelmed because we're running out of time in the day, or feeling overwhelmed because we're running out of money to pay for things that we need to, then it's so difficult to accomplish anything else that you want, because you're just so worried about these other things. So, and you can practice a lot of these tips. And if you're still having struggles with, you are too overwhelmed with your schedule, or you are too overwhelmed with your budget, it's not going to go away. But there are some tips that you could consider and some things to practice that could just at least help ease your anxiety around those things, so that you can focus on the stuff that really makes your life better, like exercising, getting an education, applying to better jobs, things like that. So I think with budgeting, I want us to start by saying that it is important to be realistic and to have a plan. I think something that's really important when you're thinking about your budget is to put yourself in a situation where you're very rarely surprised. So that does involve some pre-planning. The last thing you want to do is have your paycheck, hit your bank account, and then just say, oh, my bills will come out. It'll be fine. I can pay for this and that. It'll be fine. And then you realize, like, this was a pay period where I had more bills than I thought, and it's not fine.
Right.
So I think it involves just like a little bit of some math. So, I would look at what you make or what you have to start with after taxes and everything comes out. That's like your money to deal with. Start by immediately deducting your bills. One thing I do is I have a note in my phone where I will break out what bills I need to pay in which pay period, so that I know exactly how much money is coming out of my bank account in each pay period, so that I'll know what I have left over. So that can I buy a lot of groceries in this week? Do I have to wait until next week? Can I buy my new hair dryer this week? Should that wait till next month? And you can be able to just plan a little bit better with what you're paying for.
That's a good point with the grocery shopping too, because if you don't go into the grocery store with a plan, you're probably going to spend more than you meant to. And grocery stores are kind of created for that. They're trying to get you to pick up some of the boxes on the higher shelf that are in your eye line that you weren't thinking about going in. So it is good to have a list, some organization, and a plan going into the grocery store, just to avoid, an extra $20 here really adds up at the end of the month. It can make a huge difference in your budget. So having a plan really can keep you structured and in a better place.
And then I think with those like little extra expenses, like even the extra $20 thing at the grocery store, evaluating all of those and just seeing where in the month, based on like what bills you have in that pay period, can you afford the little extras? And then what extras could you cut back on to really save money? So, the streaming services, do you really need Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix, cable? Is there something that you're not really using that you can maybe cut out or cut back on? Takeout is a big one that kind of can get us, especially in the pandemic, or just in general when you don't want to cook, but that can get really expensive. So that might be a thing where if you're going to have a tight week or a tight month, that's an easy place to cut back.
There's also the idea of just like the value you get out of things. So we've been talking a lot about return on investment, Lauren, and sort of that idea of like, what are you getting out of, even if you're looking at your streaming services, saying like, okay, I'm going to get rid of, I have 5, I'm going to get rid of 2. Which ones am I getting the most value out of? And what are the things that I'm really getting the most value out of? Am I getting value out of takeout? Is it really giving me that much, is it really that high on my priority list to get frequent takeout? And I know that we do want to help local businesses right now, so it is kind of good to consider how we can help others in those ways, but really thinking about, where the value goes in to your purchases and how much, this is kind of a Marie Kondo moment, but like how much joy it gives you. And is it really adding to your life, this thing that you're spending? And if it isn't, think about getting rid of it so that you can, prioritize that money to things that are going to give you more joy and value.
Yep. Yeah, like I see on TikTok a lot of people talking about how much they're buying on Amazon or things like that when they're just having a bad day. Yeah. And then you get that little thrill when you make a purchase and it arrives, but then very quickly it doesn't matter anymore. So thinking about, what actually is going to make you happy and what's going to be more than just a 1 second thrill kind of thing. Another tip is, save your spare change, but I think in the digital age, if you use cash, of course, try and save $1 here, $1 there, your spare change. But a lot of us just use cards now if you're somebody who gets paid with direct deposit. So one tip I have for that is when you are looking at your budget for the month and you say you have your note up with what bills you have to pay out of each pay period, kind of have a goal with what amount of money you're left with in your checking account, say. And then if you do a really good job that week or that month and you do happen to have a little bit of extra, put that in your savings account. And even if it's $5 or $10 every week, that's going to really add up. Or look at your savings account like another bill and maybe make a savings goal of saying, I'm going to add $50 every month to my savings account. That could really start to accumulate. And then when you need something bigger or you want something fun, if you want to go on a vacation someday or save up because you're going to need a new car in a couple years, that could really come into play and really help you. Or if you just have an emergency situation, it's there for you. So do think about saving where you can. Even if it's a little bit, it'll add up over time and really help you out someday.
So speaking of tech, I was just looking up on my phone, budgeting apps. Some of these apps do a lot of this for you. So like I said, don't forget about technology. Use technology to your advantage. Here's just like a top 7 best apps for 2021 from NerdWallet. There's Pocket Guard, Mint, YNAB, Good Budget, Honeydew, Personal Capital. I've seen one called Stash, which is a cool name. So there are these other apps that can put everything in one place and help you. I think there's one that actually saves your spare change for you. So it rounds up all of your, So like if you make a purchase that's like $30.33, like they'll take 66 cents to round it up to that $34 mark and stash those pennies away. So it's worth looking into see what's out there and use them. Set aside an hour of time just to go over what apps can make your life better, even for budgeting. If you feel like you're the kind of person that struggles a little bit with this kind of stuff, give it a try. See what's out there. Try a couple new things.
Yeah. And then one last kind of budgeting tip I wanted to cover is, save wisely, also invest wisely, because sometimes when you invest in the right things, it could have a return later that could, help you, like with school, for example. Obviously, like if you invest in getting an education, that could help you strengthen your resume to, be stronger when you're applying for jobs, have more knowledge if you want to enter a new field. That can help you make more money in the end. If you're somebody who, I don't know, there are different types of investments you can make. You have to look into what's right for you. But thinking about how that sometimes, you can make a purchase that will have returns in the long run, like a coffee maker, even at home. If you're somebody who goes to get takeout coffee all the time from like a Dunkin' or a Starbucks situation, that can really add up. But if you invest a little bit up front in a coffee maker, and you make your coffees at home, then you'll be saving tons of money over time, not paying for the coffee, upgrading to the fancy latte when you're tempted in the drive-through. So, really think about your purchases and how they might benefit you over time. And if it's something that will save you money in the long run, that might make you feel good to make a fun purchase, but also make you feel good later when it really helps you out budget-wise. And
it doesn't. I think people hear investing and they think like in stock market or like Roth IRAs. Like, what are these things?
I know. I was gonna say stock market. I was like, I'm not prepared to talk about that. But
it's like I have friends that have invested in like a good truck, and they use that truck as like a side business. Yeah. I mean, you have a truck, people need stuff moved around. So it's like the idea of like, if you're making this purchase, what can you get out of it? Schools, of course, one of those things. Like, if you go to school, you are gaining skills that an employer is going to eventually want somewhere. And then you're going to, be able to negotiate better salaries and things like that to get more money back, So it's interesting to look at things that way. And like we were saying with Netflix, like if it's giving you a ton of joy, of course, keep it. But if it's, if you're not getting a lot of value for it, if you're not getting a lot of return on that investment, start to pick away at the things that really just aren't working for you. Like let your money work for you sometimes. And it doesn't have to be in weird, financial terms ways. Like we always hear when we think of investing is like, oh, invest in real estate. It doesn't have to be that. It can be anything like Lauren said, from a coffee maker up to a truck and to school, of course, school.
And if you are working and your company does offer any kind of 401k or Roth IRA policies, those can be great to look into to see if those are right for you. Because if you save now, for retirement. Your future self is really going to thank you when you have some money set away.
Yeah, that's true. That's another one of those things that to put on a list. Like, I should look into this. This is good for personal growth.
All right. Well, we talked a lot about personal growth, but with that and getting in the mood for personal growth, but I think a key element of that is growth mindset. And that's a term that we read about all the time. We see influencers on Instagram talking about, but what really is a growth mindset, and how do you work on developing a growth mindset?
So I think to figure out the growth mindset, we have to talk about the fixed mindset a little bit. So a fixed mindset, it's your mindset. First of all, it's nobody else in your life but you, and it's that thing that you say you've never really been naturally talented at basketball. So you immediately say to yourself, I'm not good at this. I'm going to fail at this. This isn't going to work. I'm not even going to try. That's a fixed mindset. It's this idea that you just really don't believe that you can overcome some of the things that you're just not naturally amazing at, which is a burden for all of us. I was 100% a fixed mindset person, and I had to really train myself to become a growth mindset person by just keep overcoming failure and saying, hey, you overcame failure. That's pretty great. So that idea of fixed mindset, it's not doing you any favors, and it's not even real. It's all an illusion. That whole idea that you can't do it, you're just not good at it, you're just going to give up from the start. It's not going to happen because you've always been bad at it in the past. All of that, you just need to kick it to the curb. And as soon as you hear yourself saying those things, you have to say to yourself, you have to literally talk to yourself like you're talking to a friend and say, no, that's not true. You need to think about the ways that you're gonna make a step towards overcoming it. And it can be a baby step, but you're gonna make a step towards overcoming it. And then eventually you'll put yourself into the mind of a growth mindset person, which is a wild place to be if you're not used to it. If you were like me in the past and you really didn't think that you could overcome your shortcomings, and you really believed that you were just bad at things and you didn't have any confidence, you can get to this place where you're just feeling like, oh, I did bad at that. That's fine. No big deal. I'm going to overcome it. I'm going to grow from this. I'm going to keep growing because life is a journey. It doesn't have these black and white scenarios. Everything is a form of growth. And I think a lot of us, I don't know, Lauren, I feel like you've always been like a growth mindset person. Were you?
Not always.
No?
No, I think it's something for me and for everyone. Like, it's easy to get yourself down about things or feel disappointed in yourself. And it is hard. And I think for everybody, even for the most positive people, because I would look at you, Rose, and think you're totally a growth mindset person. But it's not easy to do that. And I think even for people who do have a more generally positive or growth mindset, there's still times where we have to work on that and catch ourselves. So it's important for all of us I think this is something that is constant for everybody to have to work on. It's not easy. Yeah, there's always something in the back of your head saying like, oh, this isn't going to go right. And you can't do it. You can't do it this time, but you really, really can. And the best way to find out that you can do it is to keep challenging yourself and trying it. And don't give up from the start. That's the worst thing that you could possibly do, because like Lauren said earlier, you fail if you don't even try. I mean, you got to try. Don't listen to Yoda on this one. I said do or do not. There is no try in case. Yeah. That's not true. You don't know what Yoda said in Rose's mind. He can lip step with his mind, so he doesn't count. He's a little too extra gifted. For the rest of us, though, we have to try until we get to the point where we can do. But I think, getting rid of those negative thoughts is you have to train yourself to just recognize when you hear a negative thought. And that really should be step one. So when you hear yourself saying, I can't, you have to stop yourself and say, well, you can, and you're going to try it. And yes, there's plenty of scary things that might happen if you try it. But the scariest thing might be that you're actually good at something that you thought you were going to fail at, which is this whole new world. And you're like, oh my gosh, I've been holding myself back this whole time. Now it's all on you. So then you have to, almost train yourself like, hey, progress and growth and success, these are all really good things. And I'm comfortable getting there, and I'm comfortable challenging myself.
And
I think that's so powerful too, because the more you challenge yourself to say I can instead of I can't, not only are you developing a more positive can-do outlook on life, but you're also really getting mentally stronger every time you do that, because it's easy to say no, or I can't do it, or I won't figure it out. But to actually like take a moment to try and be creative or solution oriented, where you're really thinking outside the box or thinking outside of what seems obvious to you at first, is going to help your mental strength and your ability to get through situations so much stronger. And that's going to help you in so many ways throughout your life, aside from just feeling better that you were positive about something.
There's something about too, like if you're having a bad day and you're saying to me, Lauren, and you're like, I did this thing and I failed and I can't do it and I shouldn't have done it, I would give you advice. Like, you can do it. You can get, brush yourself off. I'll help you. We'll get you there. Don't be afraid to hear yourself the way that you're talking to yourself, and then objectively step back and talk to yourself as a friend. And talk to yourself the way that you would talk to a friend, because you deserve that too. And then once you start changing how you speak to yourself internally, you'll be very surprised at the things that you can accomplish. And it really is a matter of training ourselves to just like love ourselves a little bit more and talk to ourselves like a loving friend instead of like a jerky bully in our head.
You're so right, Rose. And I think, part of that is you have to embrace your flaws sometimes, embrace the things that you aren't good at, and not be mean to yourself about it, but just say like, okay, I know one of my limitations is this thing. How do I work around that to achieve my goal? And like, it's okay to have certain things that you're not amazing at or certain limitations, but you, instead of being hung up on those, say, you know what, maybe I can use this to my advantage. Like, maybe say, I'm not good at focusing on something. If I'm worried about something else, maybe use that to your advantage and say, okay, if that's the way I work, then I'll check off my to-do list the thing I'm worried about, so then I can move on to the next thing. And maybe that's a trick you can use to stay focused. But, figuring out how to use your flaws to your advantage and, see them as strengths, turn them into strengths, could be something that really helps you with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. I've never been somebody who's been really great at reading for long periods of time. I have, it's kind of something similar to dyslexia. It's not quite dyslexia, but we'll just call it that because it's close. So long periods of reading, I jumble up my words a lot. It just gets messier and messier. So I know that I am not a failure because of that. That's just something that I have to overcome. But what I've learned from that is I have to read in much smaller bursts than the average person. So I can only read it maybe 10 minutes at a time, and then my eyes are going to get tired, and I'm going to start seeing the words get jumbled. It's going to be harder to process that information. So I have to plan out little breaks. That isn't, that doesn't mean that it's a flaw. Of course it is, but it's nothing that's holding me back. It just kind of makes me a little unique in that sense. But I've learned from the past of like, if there's an exam I have to take, I can't crunch. I can't, read for 3 hours straight and expect to do a great job on that exam. Like, I've learned from that mistake. I've been down that road of failure, didn't like it. So then just, learning from those things and plotting things out so you can be more successful and not having to completely reinvent yourself. Just find solutions to areas where you could use a little help. And there are solutions. Just think of, pyramids were built how many thousands of years ago, and today we all have computers in our hands. There's always a solution for every problem if we put our minds to it.
I think with that point, Rose, you bring up a good thing, which is you can't be afraid of change if you ever want to move forward. We'd still be working on pyramids instead of computers if as a society we weren't willing to change and to grow. Mm-hmm. I know change can be scary and it's annoying. Let's be honest. It's hard and inconvenient to do something differently or to take the path that's not the easiest one in front of us. But if we don't change and we don't grow, we're never going to go anywhere. You'll always be stuck. You'll always feel the same. It'll never get better. if you're not willing to deal with the momentary pain of having to find a new way. So try and think about it like that, and think about how change can be exciting and something that you embrace instead of an annoyance or something you fear.
On that note, since I feel like we've done a lot of good just talking about personal growth, just in all aspects. But if you are out there watching and you're interested in Penn Foster education, this is how Penn Foster education exists. It's why we exist. We try to be a solution for people who, have tried other ways and maybe it didn't work. So, maybe harsh deadlines aren't for everybody. Maybe if you're like me and you have some trouble, with some learning disabilities, like you need a little bit of autonomy in your schoolwork so that you can succeed without, schedules breathing down your neck or any of that. So if you're thinking about going to Penn Foster, you want to talk to somebody about a Penn Foster program, give us a call at 1-888-427-6500. If you're a student and you feel like you're struggling, or if you feel like, you're a graduate and you're looking for help with a resume, don't forget we're also here to help you there. We're helping you in your personal growth of your career and school. So give us a call at 1-888-427-1000 if that's the case. And don't forget, we're always here for you in your personal growth. We want to see you do so well. So keep trying. We're here for you. We're rooting you on, and be a good friend to yourself, of course.
Yes, guys, hopefully you take some time today to think a little bit about ways that you want to grow as a person and how you do that. And above all else, just practice being kind to yourself. Practice saying I can, or finding a way to do something if it's good for you and it's good for you. And just making those little tiny steps every day that will add up to really help you lead a better life and the life that you want to live. And thank you for spending time with us today, because that's part of it. So we support you, and we're happy to see you guys go on your journey and better your lives. So
yeah, keep up the great work.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Until then, good luck with your personal growth.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. See ya.